Trains. Anyone that knows me even remotely well knows that I love trains. And what a better city to be in than Winnipeg to have a train obsession. We literally have trains everywhere, and it kind of makes sense why. I mean, we are at the center of Canada, we are at the center of North America, so it makes sense for this city to be a rail hub, and it's definitely a big part of our economy. But as the city's grown and more people have come here over the years, the city's relationship with trains has become a little complicated. Take the Keniston Underpass, for example. It was built as a result of train traffic on the CN main line causing delays for vehicle traffic. And infrastructure like this is expensive, and it is necessary in a lot of places, that grade separation. So of course, as time goes on, people have started to ask the question, maybe it's time for Winnipeg to rethink its relationship with trains and maybe move the trains outside of the city and use the existing tracks as light rail infrastructure or commuter rail infrastructure, or maybe even bus rapid transit or active transportation. One second. That's better. Trains are definitely an important part of the city, and they're definitely part of the city's blood. So how do we redefine our relationship with trains? As I've learned more about transit, I have learned how trains can play into moving people through a city. Maybe it is possible to convert the CN main line, the CP main line, to light rail corridors. But in order to find that out, we'd have to do a study. And that's what today's mayoral candidate wants to do. I'm so excited for this interview, and I can't wait to share it with you. This is Transit Talks Election 2022. I'm joined today with Robert-Falcon Ouellette, who ran for mayor in 2014, a familiar face, and an MP for Winnipeg Centre. And now you're running for mayor again. Congratulations on this run and getting nominated on the ballot.
Thanks, Josh.
It's great to see you. And we're here in front of Osborne Station, kind of one of the big rapid transit stations here, busy central hub. So let's talk about Winnipeg Transit.
Yeah.
In your mind, from the things you've heard from people and from your own experiences, what are the barriers, what are the issues with Winnipeg Transit right now that we really have to address?
Right now, I think the list is very long and large. Well, first off, there's huge major issues in our city right now. Homelessness, mental health, and addictions are extreme issues that we need to be dealing with. And it goes back to a long historic issues in our city. And it's actually impacting everything we touch across the city. It doesn't matter whether it's policing or even transit. Parks. People are sleeping in parks. People are sleeping in bus shelters, and people who are getting on the buses sometimes, present some major issues that make it so that even the bus drivers don't want to be on the buses. They want to be hiding behind shields. And so safety is like a really important issue right now impacting our transit. And they've seen a steady decline in ridership in the last few years. Obviously, the pandemic's had a big role to play in that, but people don't seem to have come back. And I think it's actually to do a lot with the feeling of safety on the buses. If the bus driver is afraid to be on the bus, what about the passenger? Who do you go to complain to? So this is why I actually am interested in putting in place a zero tolerance policy for any form of harassment or violence on the buses. So for instance, if there is an issue on the buses stop, and then we're going to enable peace officers, transit supervisors, we're going to make them peace officers with the appropriate training, who are going to have the opportunity of coming right away to regulate or fix the situation, de-escalate, get the person who's causing the disruption off the bus. If there's been an assault, to call the police. And if they can't deal with it, to call the police right away. And the police will respond. Because at the end of the day, bus drivers should not be afraid of going to work, and passengers should not be afraid. And so that's actually our first thing, is to actually really make it so much nicer for, just the basic sense of safety.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, and I agree with you that transit safety, you're talking about a bigger issue, right?
Yeah.
Like safety on transit is almost a side effect of other issues in the community as well. So, interesting plan to address safety on transit. Let's talk about the Winnipeg Transit Master Plan. Which is... I'll
get down to the meat of the matter.
It's, it's a 25-year vision for the city of Winnipeg and their transit system, basically rethinking how buses run in the city, how they work. What are your thoughts on the Winnipeg Transit Master Plan?
I think it's an excellent plan. I think people have worked really hard in trying to develop it. I think though, another thing though, if we talk about the environment, right?
Yeah.
And all these cars are driving by us right now. There's very few people taking a bus.
Yeah.
And so we actually have to get people riding the buses, getting them out of the car, and we have to make it so, one, it's safe, affordable for people to take it, and it's interesting for them. It's clean.
Yeah.
How many times have you taken the bus and you kind of go, oh, I don't feel like sitting down today on this bus because there's someone did something or something happened here, someone smeared some mud on something, or something that looks like mud. I don't know. I don't feel like sitting down here at this moment. And so we have to make sure that buses are clean, but also that there's actually more frequency in the buses. And so we actually need like that metro bus that they have in Quebec City. City, similar size as Winnipeg, about 750,000 people in the metro area.
Yeah.
Beautiful city. They also had huge issues with crime back around 20 years ago. Major issues in their downtown core, a lot of addiction issues, mental health challenges with people. And, they worked at it consistently with the mayor at the time, Jean-Paul Lallier. They were able, and I've had a chance to talk to Jean-Paul when he was still alive and, learn from him because I lived in Quebec City. So I was actually able to, learn what they were doing. And they put in place a metro bus system where it was really just like the buses were going on a couple major routes very consistently and often. But also to entice people back, I'd actually like to make the bus extremely affordable. So $1 a ride.
Yeah.
So I've already talked about actually making it cheaper or more free actually for youth 17 and under.
Yeah.
But I also think if we want to encourage people in the long term to climb on the bus, let's make it so that, it's only $1. Who can argue with that? I want to go downtown, I could pay $20 in parking, or I can get on the bus, I can read a newspaper, I could scroll on my phone. I guess no one's going to read the newspaper anymore. Too old
Well, there
school.
might be some that do.
Someone might be able to find a newspaper somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know where you find them anymore. I can't find them.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you say all those things. I mean, right now transit is free, I think, for 11 and under.
Yeah, 11, yeah.
And that program's seen a lot of success, so it's definitely worth looking into, including high school students in that as well, because there are a lot of high school students that take transit.
Yeah, but also, if as a parent, I actually love it if my kids could take the bus, but right now I'm actually a little nervous to let my young daughter or sons, climb on the bus to go to cadets. I kind of worry, would something happen to them? Would they be okay?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And it's interesting you talk about the metro bus frequency, because that's a big part of the Winnipeg Transit Master Plan, is having buses come more often, run more direct routes. Right now it's a 25-year plan. In your mind, is this a plan that is actually a 25-year plan?
Well, I think that's a way of shoveling the problems forward by politicians. So obviously, if I'm committing to making a metro bus system, I actually want that sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
I'd like that in my first term. I don't want to be standing around waiting for something to happen. And we need to make it so it's incredible actually, the numbers. In 1982, there were actually more people riding the transit system, I believe, than there were today.
Yeah. Streetcars, it was more.
Yeah, it's kind of strange if you think about it. 1982, people are we're going back in time.
Yeah.
That's over 40 years ago, and it's gone. It did have a bit of an uptick in just a few years before the pandemic, but at the end of the day, we got to find a way of getting people to take the bus.
Exactly.
And make it affordable, convenient, just a better experience. People aren't going to take the bus if it's not a good experience.
No, I agree.
No one wants to get on the bus and I don't want to be here.
Yeah, when it's more comfortable to ride something else, right? So, big debate here in Winnipeg is bus rapid transit versus light rail transit.
Yes.
The never-ending debate. It's been going on, I don't know, since the 50s. Since they took away the streetcars. So what are your thoughts on light rail versus bus rapid transit?
Well, first, were you there that summer when they kind of pave over Memorial and there's always those rail lines that pop out like dinosaur bones or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big proponent of LRT. I love LRT. I've lived in cities with it, and it's fun to get around. It's super convenient, easy. Yeah. It's really nice. A lot of people like riding it. They had great success in Calgary with it, Edmonton. Quebec City's putting it in place. Ottawa has put it in place now. They've converted from the BRT to LRT. But what I'd like to know is actually doing a study to actually understand the cost. Because we have a lot of these rail lines. There was a train going by here as we started the interview.
Yeah.
Rolling by. Could that actually be used? as infrastructure. Do the rail lines need to use all that infrastructure? And obviously we don't want to cost jobs to any rail line workers. We don't want to lose the rail yards, but maybe the rail yards actually might be better outside the city. But the questions keep coming up, how much does this cost? And no one's ever done a study. So, being the nerd in me, the prof is, let's actually just get some hard numbers on a piece of paper that we can look at, and then we can make a decision, because you can't really decide anything. It's great to throw out ideas and things, but if you don't have numbers, you can't do it. And so I actually had some success in Ottawa. The feds were willing to pay for it when I was the MP for it if the city would request it. And so I was excited when the provincial government put forward the idea to do something in 2016. Then they canceled it later on in 2016 by a new provincial government. I think its time has come to at least study it. Let's just know. Let's get some experts, put the numbers down on paper, and then let's compare, like the cost economically, the viability, what would happen, where could you put it if you actually had to build rail yards outside of the city, and how much would it cost to actually convert in various segments. I know when you travel around the country and someone takes a old rail line, what do often? They tear it out and they put like a active transportation corridor on it. Right? Instead of thinking, well, maybe we actually want to put something else here that could be really useful. And let's not, let's use this opportunity actually to at least study it.
Well, there are places, Winnipeg too, that have done that. That have converted it to active transportation trails, and you do wonder if it is, if that's the right thing to do. I love active transportation, but sometimes infrastructure exists, and it is worth looking into, I believe, the cost of things, right? Because putting an LRT train on freight train tracks, you can't just dump them on. There's extra costs as well, right? So looking into it, getting an actual look at what do we have to do to the system, to the infrastructure, get a cost for it. I think you're right. We need the numbers to make a decision. That being said, are you also in favor of doing bus rapid transit lines in the master plan as light rail transit, like light rail on the street, on Portage, on Main Street, or are you more in favor of the separated light rail networks?
I think that would actually have to be evaluated in the long term. I know in Calgary what they did is they actually used some of the old rail lines as an example when they had the '88 Winter Olympics. So they converted a lot of the rail lines over, but then they also did go through the downtown core along one section to connect them, and where it actually went through the business district so they could actually get workers to their place of work. And it was really actually very successful. It was very inexpensive, and at first people were complaining about it. It's too expensive, it's this, it's that, it's not what we want. But people started taking the park and rides. Like literally they would park their car in the suburbs, they'd come from their house, park it there, and it was free parking with security obviously, and then they would ride the rails all the way downtown and go to work. People loved it. Kids loved it. I used to go to school on that.
Well, I mean, there's also parts of Winnipeg that have done great with rail relocation, right? I mean, Seasons of Tuxedo, I believe, was a rail relocation project. Forks, of course, is the most obvious one. There's two large rail yards in Winnipeg. There's Symington Yards, which I think is one of the largest rail yards in the world. And then there's Weston Yards, which is separating kind of the downtown and the north end at the moment. Are you interested in looking at moving both of those yards or one of those yards?
Well, I think it has to be looked at in the study to see which would be the best for the long-term development in the city. And I'm not saying that maybe the study's going to come back and say it's going to cost this amount of money, and we're going to go, whoa, like we can do something else much less expensive. Or maybe they'll say this line's actually not being used by the rail companies. Maybe the city can buy it, and then we can convert it over to some other use. And if the company needs to come in, maybe they can use it late at night or something like that when the city's not using it, like after midnight or when the LRT stops. I don't know. We got to explore it. We got to find out. The way I would love a city is like if you see the rail lines, they actually spread out to all the major suburbs. They come right into the core. And then you could actually get away from a lot of the buses. And you could actually just have then, just a few buses moving people around in the local area in the micro areas, right? It'd be nothing to get on the LRT. In Calgary, you can get across the whole city on the LRT in about 30 minutes. And it's a really big city. That's over 1 million people, that city, and 1.1 million, I think. And they're really spread out. They love urban sprawl,
and we do too. I think
more than us. I think we talk about it here, but I think they love it in Calgary. But they build roads to go along with it, and underpasses, overpasses. Anyways,
interesting. Talking of urban sprawl,
Yeah.
Let's say that we relocate rail yards,
Yeah.
right? We move them outside the city. How do we prevent the city from sprawling so that 30, 40 years later, we're not dealing with the same issue again of, oh, now we're living next to the rail yards and then we have to move them again?
That's actually interesting. I was actually just at a little evening where I was listening to Brent Bellamy talk about you know, zoning and things like that, and you know how, you know, if you zone an area, how it actually impacts what we get built, because when you build something, it lasts for 50 to 100 years, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's extremely important to think about like our downtown core right now. I think, like as an example, the government didn't like a hotel called the St. Regis, which was just right downtown. You know, I guess it was an old hotel. They didn't like the clientele in there. They wanted to move them out. Well, you know, they shut it down, and you know, people have to live somewhere, so they live in our streets and in the bus shelters.
Yeah.
They tore it and they made a beautiful surface parking lot, and that was just a few years ago.
Yeah.
A couple years ago. I want to actually see buildings downtown. You can't have a lively downtown with just one style of building, like the skyscraper and, you know, modern, you know, and built in the last 5 years. You need buildings of all ages in our downtown core and people living down there. And so you shouldn't be removing buildings. So 20% of our downtown right now is actually surface parking lots.
Yeah.
So I want to actually change the assessment, way we assess those surface parking lots, to tax them at a higher rate, to make sure that they're valued at what they are actually really worth, like a 4-story building, to generate one income, but also to force the land developers and speculators to actually do something with it.
Yeah. How does transit play into downtown revitalization?
Well, there should actually be a free bus line downtown.
Well, Calgary, it's free. The C train is free, I think,
in certain areas.
Yeah,
the downtown core. Yeah, in the downtown core, it's totally free, which allows people just to move around from the office buildings very quickly, efficiently.
Yeah.
And we should be having that as well in the downtown core here.
Yeah.
We used to have that, but we canceled it.
Yeah.
But I've talked to seniors who live downtown, and they go, "Oh, you know, that was my way of getting groceries."
Yeah.
And they're on a fixed income, and they often don't have a lot of cash to get around.
Right.
So it's an equity issue as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Robert, for taking the time to chat transit with me. For more information about Robert-Falcon Ouellette, where can people go?
Go to the website, Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. All the major platforms.
Everything.
Everywhere.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Robert.
Okay. Bye.